Hello everybody. In my last video I was talking about the different types of projects that you can use to upgrade your portfolio. Today I want to zoom in onto the side projects and see if we can find ways to improve on them, to basically kill the disadvantages and downsides these projects potentially have, and upgrade and elevate our portfolio by focusing on the side project as a key differentiator that shows our individual skill as a designer. And I also want to basically see how we can use tools like ChatGPT to improve on that project. All right, let's jump right in. So the side project as defined in my last video is a self-initiated project realized in your own time and in private terms, right? It reflects your personal interests and shows initiative that you take time out of your schedule to pursue a project. It gives you full creative control. There's no restrictions. Everything is allowed. You're the only person to validate or disregard an idea and to make the decisions. So all the power is in your creative self. It's a key differentiator project, especially if you are from university where many students go through the same classes and courses year after year. Their portfolio also then shows the same projects, right? Even if the solutions are slightly different, the problems they tackle are usually the same. So with side projects, you can really make a differentiation between you and other students from the same background. I would highly recommend to use side projects also to basically create a portfolio that is custom to the employer of your choice where you want to apply for. So you can really target the domain that they are specializing in by creating side projects that are relevant for that domain. Usually we can go all the way, right? We don't stop just at the sketch, but we take it the next step. We print 3D models of the project. We evolve it over time and iterate on it. That's really great, right? Because you can now take real life samples of the work that you did and bring them to the interview, show them the iterations and the evolution that they made, like where you started from, where you ended up with, how you overcame very specific problems. So this is a really convincing project where you all know all the ins and outs of. There can be lack of context and feedback. You're the only one working on this project, so there's also nobody else you're responsible to. So this might also mean that it takes more time because there's no deadline. You're only finished when you say you're finished. And sometimes we also lie to ourselves. We're not even finished yet. This can be a problem. Often teams really provide like multiple perspectives onto a problem, and if you do this by yourself, then this is obviously something you like. It always helps to connect to a community that potentially works on a similar topic, but that's not always the case and it's not always possible. So that can be a problem. Also, because it's just a personal project, there's usually no market validation. If we apply for a job at a company, then they want basically to pay us for generating more money than they pay us, right? So we're an overall benefit to their financial situation and create profit. And with side projects, there's no market validation, right? You don't sell the project really and you don't produce it en masse. But that's not the key of a side project. The side project really requires a lot of additional effort. It takes time out of your schedule. You have to keep on going with it. And as I mentioned before, it never is done, right? Only when you say it's done, and you can continue and continue and continue and continue. It will never really be finished. So yeah, be aware of that. That if you want to really use it for a portfolio project, then potentially give yourself some deadline so you can be sure to at least to a certain point of the process, of the development process, to have like reached that point so you can actually implement it into your portfolio and show it. The general tips that I would have for the side project is that you choose something that you truly enjoy, right? So this is your chance now to really do design work in a field that you want to do, that you really are interested about and feel personal and emotional about. And it's also important that you communicate exactly what you want to show with your side project. So we're quickly able to generate like amazing cinematic images of a project. And we also need those images in our portfolio, but they are like the very minimum expectation that we have. But apart from that, we potentially want to communicate something much deeper, right? You potentially want to highlight the process, the research process of a project. How did you get to those conclusions and why? Did you really look into the user? Here's now the chance with the side project, you can build it in such a way that you can highlight different aspects to such a degree that they are communicating exactly what you want to communicate to your potential employer of the future. And another tip is that, if you start a side project, go all the way, create the mockups, create the 3D prints, go all the way so you have more than just another concept that is just fabricated and based on nothing. Dive deep into it and really create a convincing project out of your side project. And then also use the side project to fill the gaps, right? So if you have a portfolio set up already, or different, I don't know, 4 or 3 different portfolios with different focus attention points of the portfolio, you can use side projects to fill the gaps of what you already have. So let's say you have a freelance work that you did, but maybe it was a graphic design project, so you didn't have to build anything, right? So if that's relevant for you, then you still have to show the building part. Or maybe this graphic design project didn't require any insights into a certain user group, but you still want to maybe show that you understand users and context and physics and materials, manufacturing, right? So take side projects to really fill in those gaps in your portfolio as a overall project. Show your strength, use it to really highlight the things that are important to you and to your future employer. The extra tips that I want to state are: create a realistic project brief and work off of existing products. Make things more realistic. I said that you have full creative freedom, right, with the side project. There's no restrictions. And that's also the danger, that we just create something that is fictional. So in order to avoid that, we can now use ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to frame a design brief for us that is realistic, that is convincing, that gives us certain constraints that we have to consider during the design process. So we can basically still utilize the strength of a real life engineering client project or design project and create a side project with our own decisions, with the own product that we want to do for the right target group that we want to choose, and still have the relevant realistic constraints set up by conversation with ChatGPT. It still doesn't mean that your project is 100% real, but at least it gives you pointers and also helps you identify the aspects that are relevant in the design of a certain project. So I prepared, let's say, a phrasing, and I will just read it out to you. So I want you to appear as a client for a side project I'm working for to add to my industrial design portfolio. I think it's important for ChatGPT to understand what the overall purpose is of this chat that I'm going to have. I state the product and why I want to do this product, right? I am designing a suitcase, and my goal is to design a suitcase that balances the advantages of a backpack and the business appeal of a suitcase. So this was my original idea, right? I want to design a suitcase, but I'm like more the backpacking type of guy. And yet I feel like if I were like traveling for work, I would have to bring a suitcase. But if I travel for fun, then I bring my backpack. But what if if I have a business trip somewhere and I want to have fun afterwards and go on adventures after the job is done? What do I take my backpack and my suitcase? Maybe I can come up with a solution that brings everything together, right? So I think this is an interesting overall challenge that is really intriguing to me, as my individual preferences say. And now I turn that into a realistic project. Further, it goes on, so you're now my client and I expect you to give me a realistic design brief. And then I state what I want to be included in that brief. Please include some background info on you as a client brand, your strength and current user group. Please also give me a price indication or market segment. Let's correct that while we're at it. You want this new product to be placed in. I mean, obviously you can adjust this prompt to your own wishes, right? If you have set certain things already, if you already know your target user group, you can already define it, and ChatGPT doesn't have to do that for you. If you don't want information on the history, background of the brand, that's also fine, right? That's all on you. But basically, I ask for this brief to include the segment the product has to be placed in, and also giving the technical specs of the product that are relevant and necessary compliance and regulation that I need to consider during the design of the process, right? So this also makes things much more realistic, because now we know which regulations to pay attention to. Now we consider that into our design process. So even if it's a fictional one, it at least could be taken into a real life setting and it would already be compliant with the most important aspects. All right. So this is the design brief. So we get a travel hybrid business suitcase, exactly what I'm looking for. It gives you a brand name, Eric's Mobility Design. It states the industry, premium travel goods, mobility accessories, headquarters Denmark, Copenhagen, right? So I think this is interesting. Now you have a context. So you already understand that the base design could be Scandinavian minimalism. Then it goes on to say lifestyle brand, specializing in urban mobility gear. The company's design ethos blends Scandinavian minimalism and technical precision, right? So now, obviously, I didn't state anything what style I want this to be. Maybe you already have an idea that you want to go for your design. And then just make clear, actually, I wanted this to be in a Japanese style and include futuristic elements. Then you can just update your design brief and that's basically how you can go on. All right, now it's a completely different brand, right? It's Hikari Mobility Systems from Tokyo. They're known for its precision engineered travel gear, so maybe that's more to what I'm looking for. Quiet sophistication, advanced materials, human-centered design. The user base includes urban innovators and creative professionals. All right, so this is much more up my alley, right? This is what I wanted to. Then we have a project background, work from anywhere lifestyle. So can we come up with tools and ideas to convert basically traditional luggage into something that redefines our experience for both the adventure and the business. The project vision, adaptability of technical backpack, elegance, and precision of futurism in Japanese industrial design, right? So these are all words also that you can use to create a mood board that really fits the assignment. And now, because you have a frame and reference, it's also much more meaningful. Now, it's not just any mood board that you just randomly come up with, but it's a mood board that suits a certain brand for a specific assignment with a specific use in mind, right? So this is much more valid and has much more background information to feed from. Market positioning, it's a premium smart travel design, so it's a high price. That also means you can have a better understanding of the materials that you can potentially use and the overall aesthetic that you might want to apply. It's a direct-to-consumer e-commerce flagship store in Asia. Then we have the dimensions. So it has to comply with IATA regulations in terms of dimensions. It has to have a certain weight and the capacity. I mean, because it's still a Sideproject, you can deviate from that, but why not just try to stick to realistic numbers? You can obviously check if these are even realistic numbers. I also recommend to do that. But if you design a suitcase, you definitely will look into other suitcases anyway, so you can just double check if these are accurate or not. Then you get a list of core features like dual mode carry, telescopic handle, hidden backpack straps, modular inner structure with magnetic dividers, soft LEDs, and so forth, right? It's not like you have to bring all these in, but you can. You can now really just evolve this frame, right, this reference, and just keep talking to ChatGPT as if they were your client. Do we really need space for a 16-inch laptop? Or is not like a space for, I don't know, 12-inch tablet enough? I don't know. Or do we actually need more space for a camera too? And then we have the materials here. And now the cool thing is we know, okay, the outer shell is bio-based polycarbonate with a certain finish. Now we can also ask what manufacturing techniques are currently used. So now you can get more background information on the manufacturing process of suitcases that match your client already. So the shell is vacuum formed. Then we have the frame aluminum titanium hybrid frame, right? So these are things, it's not like you have to stick to that, right? But it's at least a pointer that helps you flesh out the things. All right, it gives you also clear deliverables, design concept sketches, 2 or 3 directions. So is that also something in your portfolio that you want to show, that you can come up with multiple concepts for the same design brief that basically tackle the same problem, but they still show a certain versatility in your design language skills, in your translation skills of the problem into a product, right? So you need to provide a CMF sheet, a CAD model, visual renderings, in-studio and lifestyle context. I think that's interesting and relevant. Prototype-ready model. Is that something you can do or not? It even gives you a timeline, so that can be helpful if you feel like you need a deadline to actually force you to finish the project. Some keywords, some characters, and so forth. Now you have set up this chat in a way that allows you to always chat with your client, and you can really discuss certain features also. I mean, often the design brief also evolves over time. Like the general list of features that was asked at the beginning is not usually the one that also ends up in the final product, because during the process we understand that certain things cannot be realized because of space constraints or cost constraints, or we actually have to consider something else that came up in the meantime. So it's not like it's super rigid, but it is a framework and a guideline that you can really use to make your side project more realistic. And maybe I can also show you some of the things that I did. So I basically created an entire brand, Voyager Elite, for this side project that I never got to finish actually. Where I also looked into the competitors, the landscape in their domain, in their segment, right? What are things you have to pay attention to? Create personas around the target user and so forth. So now you can really go in there and start going all the way. And another key idea that I find is really helpful to make things more realistic in your side project is to work off of existing products. Potentially you have already a suitcase and you just feel like it's super shitty handle, or the wheels are just crappy, or there's just not enough space for the things that you want to put in there, or that it's uncomfortable, right? So you already potentially have a real product and identified real problems, undeniably real, right? If you tackle those head on, then you're also much closer to a realistic side project that is actually valuable and convincing. I mean, it doesn't have to be a suitcase, right? That was just the example that I used now, but can be anything really, like a phone, a mouse, some pliers or whatever. You can do anything. And by working off of existing products, you always have a real life reference right at your hands that you can take measurements from, that you can feel the grip, look at the material, see, all right, how was this made? Okay, we see parting line here. What kind of material is this? This looks cheap or not cheap, I don't know, right? So these are all things that are really helpful for you to consider during the process, and they really help you with your own evolution and understanding of the product, right? So you also know how much it costs. You can potentially come up with an understanding of how this was made. And if you can disassemble, right? Let's see, I have another mouse here from Logitech, and actually it's not like I really disassembled it, but the cool thing with this one is it has this magnetic lid, and I can look into the inside. So it has a battery, it has this mouse wheel here, and I have this lid. So I wanted to see, because this is really flat and it's not really ergonomic, right? So that was the problem I identified back then. So I felt like maybe I can do something myself. And then I started printing ideas. It's a little dusty, laying there already for a while. But I just printed a reference base and a top that was more ergonomic, that I could try and rest my hand on, see how the shape, surface details would come out. I also printed then this example, which was more in line design. We have some breakups here. Or like the bubble thing, where the idea was that this would actually be squishy bubbles that you could inflate basically, and then you can really rest your hand on this thing ergonomically. right? So just by having the real deal in your vicinity at your hands, you can make a product much more real because you have a clear reference and a clear target, clear measurements, right? And also by disassembly, you get to understand really what's important. Like, where are screws? Where are basically snap fits or ribs? How thick is the wall thickness? How do two parts connect to each other? How is it assembled? So this really gives you like a huge learning also about how things are made engineering wise. But there are super cheap products out there. If you go to Action or other supermarkets, thrift shop, I don't know, and just get anything that you think could be interesting to design, then just take it home, maybe buy 2 of them, disassemble one completely and learn about it. And if you break it, you still have a spare one left, right? And then really design for all these things like the PCB. How does it mount? How does it connect? Where does the cable go through? And with the 3D printer, you basically have all the tools to create your own custom housing and still maintain the functionality of a product. All right. So these were all my clues for upgrading your side projects to boost your portfolio by applying like all these ideas that I was talking about to your own side projects, to your overall portfolio. And I hope this helps you elevate your portfolio and get the dream job that you're always looking for.